Some films beg to be analysed, for example The Shining or The Usual Suspects. If you've seen either of these, then you know, by their very nature and direction, their nuances are designed to stay in your mind for days. However, this scrutiny isn't necessary for every piece of modern cinema. Quentin Tarantino is one of the best storytellers in modern cinema. His films are seldom ambiguous, and when the stories may be complex, hidden meanings are a rarity in his films. His films are told like fables. Aside from the timeline exhibiting some complexities, Tarantino focuses on dialogue and developing his characters, leaving us with some of the most memorable lines in movie history. However, Tarantino has made it clear that he thinks that the meaning of his films is subjective, and whatever meaning the individual viewer derives from the picture should be respected as much as the intended meaning from the writer or director.
I never deal with subtext when I'm writing. Ever, ever, ever. I keep it about the text. I keep it about the scenario, because I know there's a lot there, but I don't want to know it right now.
Joel and Ethan Coen are two of the most capable writers of the last half-century, and their film, A Serious Man, is particularly unique. It follows a suburban man and is grappling with relatively banal problems. He spent his life being taken advantage of and begins to question everything his life is centered around since birth. There are no screeching car chases or helicopter crashes or anything of that ilk, but A Serious Man has left me stunned and captivated by the story. To analyse A Serious Man would be to rob it of what made it so special. On the surface, there appears to be nothing to analyse, but when watching the film, it evokes a strange feeling of relatability. At the end of the film, an audience is breathless, with a feeling of immense understanding. If you asked a fan of A Serious Man to describe the film, I think their answer would be at least disappointing. The film shouldn't be analysed. Its meaning is that it has no meaning. It's a commentary of life. Taxi Driver is one of the most beautiful pieces of cinema of all time. It is deliberately shot as if to hypnotise the audience, with a contrast of bright neon lights and cryptically dim lighting. Even watching the film at face value, it's necessary to use an element of inference to understand the plot. The film is a critical view of masculinity versus femininity in the 1970s and how each deals with conflict. Travis is intellectually juvenile and struggles to understand his own psyche, so channels his struggles into violent and racist outbursts. Betsy, when faced with conflict, asks her male co-worker for help.
Hey, you're blocking our doorway. You think you might want to move your pants?
And Iris, the other female protagonist, is portrayed as vulnerable and dependent on her abusive pimp. Scorsese and Paul Schroeder were bitterly aware of this social issue of toxic masculinity and sexism, so chose that as the secondary plot to their picture, critiquing 1970s post-Vietnam culture. That was my analysis of a film that warrants such scrutiny. Working off the basis that the filmmaker's word on a film's meaning isn't final, I implore you to watch these films and see how they make you feel.
To me, it's very obvious. I mean, of course, King Kong is a metaphor for the slave trade. I'm not saying the makers of King Kong meant it to be that way, but that's the movie that they made, whether they meant to make it or not.